Views expressed by Casters Guild members are only the opinions of that member, and that could change from day to day. Guild members may use mature language, but that in no way means they are mature. Listener discretion is advised.
From the first time we rolled a die to the most recent campaign we ran, some of our most fond memories technically didn't even happen to us, but we sure were glad to have our friends there. And that's the spell we're casting tonight on Casters Guild. Thank you for tuning in tonight's episode of Casters Guild. I'm your guild master, Rick. I miss the Warlord class, Perry.
And I'm your guild master, Baron, Satanic Panic Kane.
And tonight, we're just shooting the shit about some times that we played D&D, because honestly, it just sounds like a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, that's definitely a dream of every role player out there, to sit around for a couple hours and talk about their old characters.
And the worst part about it is, a lot of times we don't get that chance.
No, absolutely. I mean, I know there's a lot of gamers out there who they almost treat that as a pet peeve when people start talking about their characters, but then these motherfuckers will turn around and talk about their characters.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, man, screw that. I want to hear about everybody's characters.
I do too. I've literally found myself at like conventions or like groups of nerd gatherings, and like I find out people play D&D, and I was like, look, I'm going to give you a rare opportunity here because I'm going to ask you a question and I seriously want to know the answer. Tell me about your character.
Mm-hmm.
And I will sit there and listen.
We should totally open up a booth at one of the cons and just be like, we'd have the Casters Guild thing back up there, but you know what? We'd be like, we wouldn't be selling anything.
Nope.
Nothing. And we would just have a sign that says, tell me about your character.
Mm-hmm.
They come up, they tell us about their character. We go, okay, cool. We could just hand them like a membership card right there. You're a member of the guild. You're a guild member.
I actually really like that idea.
And actually, you know what? That would be a good idea, because we could have our socials and everything on there, even the Discord, and be like, hey, you're invited to the Discord. Use this code to get in.
And with their permission, we could record them talking about their character, and we could have a whole cast of like snippets and highlights from.
And you know what? I think that would be worth getting a booth.
Yeah.
We wouldn't even need anything big.
No, we definitely, because like you just need something that we could put a mic at. Maybe enough for like a few chairs, so like the person sitting down can sit down and tell us about their character.
Right. And well, we'd also have to have, the ribbons that people put on their badges.
Oh yeah, and give those out.
Have to get one that says guild member.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have our plan for our first con now.
The first one we're going to staff anyway.
Right. We should probably write this down. Oh, wait.
If only we were recording this.
Damn it. Actually, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we had this idea this time.
Yeah. So, do you remember your first character?
I do. The first character is also I played him in the first world that I fell in love with. And, I fell in love with the world when I was reading the novels.
That's Dragonlance, right?
Correct. And his name was something Fireforge. I can't remember the name, but I'm sure it was Fireforge because, back when you first start, you're absolutely trying to copy something. And I think I wanted him to be related to him. But now that I think about it, oh, wait, Flint's a hill dwarf, isn't he? Or is he's not a mountain dwarf, is he?
I have no idea.
Anyways. And he was a rogue, or a thief. They were called thieves back then. All I remember about the character was he just climbed up a tree and he was shooting at goblins, I think, with his crossbow. It wasn't very memorable, but really the thing that made it memorable was that it's my first time.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure I could say that about quite a few things.
I could probably say something pretty similar about my first character. I created it out of a bunch of PDFs that somebody gave me on my laptop for 3.5 books, because it was on the USS Enterprise and people weren't carrying a bunch of D&D books onto an aircraft carrier. So I had like all of the 3.5 library sitting in front of me, and you got to realize in like 2006 that's quite a bit of books. So I made it something like super complicated. I made like a half elf vampire samurai because I was young. I was a bit of a weeb. Thought samurais were super cool. I was reading through the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice at the time, and so I put together this character. I don't remember a whole lot about the character. Their name was probably some sort of Anne Rice reference. I don't even remember what that character could do. So yeah, I can relate. So what was the first character that really stuck with you? What was one that you remember everything about?
The first one I remember everything about would be a character named Danner Lighttouch. He was, or is really, a Lightfoot halfling. And back then, when I first started playing him, it was AD&D. And what's funny, too, because the way I got this character was the guy that usually ran for us, that usually ran our games. He has been GM for life on everything. He's ran everything. Oh, the only time I've ever seen him play is when he was playing with us in a con game. But he made a group of characters based off of our personalities, what we like, and what we're good at. So he gave me he started out as a rogue. Again, thief, because AD&D.
Right.
And then I eventually, when we did the transition to 3rd edition, he became a rogue ranger. And that's around when I started calling him a urban ranger, which, I mean, ranger skills and what you had to do. I had to take ranger because you had to have, that's like the easiest way to get dual wielding, because it was really hard to get dual wielding anyway else.
Right.
But like I said, he was a halfling. He had a taste for the richer things in life. You know, everything was gold buckled. He had gold buckles everywhere. He was skinny for a halfling. Actually, just skinny. It was written into his bio that, you know, he had a stomach disorder, so he couldn't really eat as much as a halfling would normally do. So
which is a lot.
Right. So he was really skinny. I think even before it became pretty common for halflings to be wearing shoes, because they kind of got away from the barefoot halflings
the Tolkien
thing.
stuff, yeah.
Yep. He was wearing shoes because his feet were smaller than normal. So, you know, he wore shoes, skinny. But yeah, he was really cool. He actually got really powerful with a lot of the stuff that he would get, because I played him in the living campaigns. And he ended up getting really powerful, especially like when we went to 3rd edition. That was crazy. One particular point that I thought was funny. You know, in 3rd edition, when you choose Ranger, you have to choose a favorite enemy. So the whole time, I had human as my favorite enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually people found out, and they were like, you can't choose human, that's evil. I'm like, no, it's not. How is that evil? It's like, I just prefer, have trained to fight humans. I don't hate them. I just know how to fight them the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it actually went up to leadership, and they made the ruling that you had to choose a faction of human to be able to. And it's like, okay, but I could choose elf, though. I could choose dwarf.
Yeah.
But I can't choose human. No. So no, that doesn't jive with me. But I chose Red Wizards of Thay.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
Became a mage hunter.
Mm-hmm. So what about you?
So, as I started playing, I would say I liked each character I made a little bit more than the previous. But it did all start with my first character after my first character. So my first character was 3.5, a whole bunch of books. My second character was a 4th edition character for your campaign. His name was Richard Balthier. He was a warlord, and he was a human. And I am so glad I took your advice when making that character, because I had no idea what I was doing with D&D, and you brought the book over to my place, and you were like, I've been looking over this edition, and humans are really cool in this edition. So I was like, sure, I'll be a human. I know how to be a human. I've been one of those before. And then you were like, there's this new class warlord that, you know, is kind of martial and kind of support. And I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, that sounds like it's right up my alley, so sure. And so I made Richard Balthier, and I got to cut my teeth on role playing with Richard Balthier. As far as the first time I ever wrote like a real backstory, I wrote like an entire page. I was super proud of it. I took a picture of Siegfried from Soul Calibur, and I was like, "Yep, this is my character." He had feathers all over his armor, and that's a whole nother story. And I kind of discovered who he was over the course of that very short portion of campaign that I got to play. But one thing I'll never forget about that character and that first game that I got to play is, we went over to your friend's house and we started playing, and like every half hour to an hour I would look at my phone or look at my watch or whatever it was I was keeping time with at that time, and I would watch the hours kind of tick away, and with every hour I was thought, man, this will probably end soon, but I sure hope it doesn't. Like I was just like, we've been here for a while, and like I don't know when they're gonna make me leave, because like you were my ride. So whenever you said it was over, it was over. But I was just like, man, I sure hope it's not now.
Well, that's cool. Then that's actually a hell of a compliment. That is when you know that you're doing a good job, is when you get someone so hooked into a game that it's like, oh God, I hope this isn't over. I
Yeah.
hope this isn't over. I've definitely always wanted to be one of those GMs that when I said, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and everybody just groans in like, just why? Just one more hour.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, like that honestly is what led to me becoming a dungeon master. I mean, I'd love to say it was just like, oh, you inspired me and it made me want to become a dungeon master, but no, what it really was that campaign ended. I think you were going to start another 3.5 one because you were driving with fourth, and like something got in the way of that one. I created a character for that one as well, but I know I never got to play her, so like I don't remember what happened with that campaign.
We were going to jump into the third edition stuff again because I preferred it. It was easier to tell stories with. It was easier for people to tell stories with their characters.
Hmm.
And I think I even had people make characters for it.
Yeah,
But yeah, something happened. It could have just been, honestly, I will hit these points to where I feel like I totally failed the group, and I will end the campaign, start up a new one, or say I'm going to start up a new one and it never happens because I'm still crushed by the earlier one.
right.
And again, and it's nothing that anybody said, it's just I let my expectations judge the game for my players.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
But that's actually, now that I think about it, a little bit of an interesting thing, because the character I made for that campaign was the only female character I've ever made, and I haven't played a female character since. I mean, I couldn't tell you any particular reason why. I mean, just haven't felt the urge to. But I was prepared to for that campaign. I also, before that campaign where I made the female, I kind of skipped over one because you also did some modules that were fourth edition. After you did the campaign you were originally running for fourth edition, you did some modules, and I played Richard's younger brother Eric, which was also another human warlord, because I was having so much fun with that human warlord. I didn't want to change. So I made his younger brother. Now, they did have very different personalities, which is, why I said I got to cut my teeth with role playing, because even though I practically made the same character mechanically, they were very different people.
Nice. And yeah, I probably ran those modules because, again, I didn't trust my storytelling at the time. So I was like, okay, well, especially not with fourth edition.
Yeah.
So I was probably just like, okay, we're going to do some stuff. Let's just run modules. And, I think what it was, it was the incarnation of RPGA at the time.
Hmm.
It could have even been RPGA.
Yeah, they were RPGA manuals. Modules. I know for a fact because I ran those same modules for the RPGA later.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I was trying to get our group together and to do stuff so that eventually we could all go to a con together and play.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
And then that's when you decided to start the 3.5 campaign, which didn't go anywhere. And then I still wanted to play D&D. I didn't want it to end. I was like, well, are we going to play D&D? And you weren't running a game, and I didn't know anything but 4th edition. So I was like, fine, if nobody else is running a game, I'll run a game. And I didn't know anything but 4th edition. I had books. I bought books for it. So I was like, hey, I'm going to start a 4th edition game. Does anybody want to play? And everyone was like, 4th edition? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, no. So that's when I became an RPGA DM. I went to my friendly local game store, and they were like, "Yeah, you can totally run games for us." And my wife jumped in after a while, which I've told this story before, but I still feel sorry for her. I had been running for RPGA for quite a while before she decided she was actually going to create a character and play. And when she did, I had gotten the 4th edition version of Tomb of Horrors as a DM reward for DMing for RPGA, and that was the first adventure she ever did, was Tomb of Horrors.
Wow. Is that Tomb of Horrors? Is that the stupidly hard one, or is that Tomb of Annihilation?
No, Tomb of Horrors is the original Gary Gygax written stupidly hard one.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I remember watching. I remember watching the XP to level 3 guys. They have a full run through of the game. I didn't watch the full run through,
and they were playing the 5th edition one.
Yeah,
from the Tales of the Yawning Portal.
Yes, and it's still stupidly hard.
Yes,
but
they
went through, and instead of playing it, they just did a breakdown of how the adventure went, and they were just ripping it the whole time.
They started to play it, and then they realized how dumb it was, and then they were just like, never mind, we're not playing this. We're just going to break it down.
They died.
Yeah.
They died. That looks like they played, or at least their video ran for about 3.5 hours on Arcane Arcade, if anybody wanted to go check that out. But yeah, they said it looks like they played for about 3.5 hours, but then oh man. But then he did a video that says my version of Tomb of Horrors. He said he fixed it. So I watched it, and he definitely made some interesting choices in how to fix it. And if it's exactly how he said it was, then yeah, those changes needed to be made, because some of those original choices were just big dumb.
Oh yeah, I definitely, when I ended up running it for my wife and a couple of my other friends in my living room, I definitely changed it as we were going. Like, I would read something and be like, no, that's unfair, and I'd change it in my head, and that's how I would run it. I didn't write down any of those changes. I couldn't tell you today what those changes were that I made. I can tell you that one friend of mine rage quit. He was like, nope, I'm not playing this module anymore, because his character changed gender. And which is what one of the traps could do. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, so I didn't change it. And when that happened, if he had come to me like in a civil way and was like, hey, I really don't like that, like this whole character thing, like I really want, like I would have figured out a way to either change him back in story or just would have undone it or something.
If it came down to like just a comfort thing and he wasn't comfortable with it, oh cool, well guess what? It's, after a day it goes away.
Yeah.
There you go.
But he definitely threw a whole ass fit and rage quit and wanted to argue about it, and it just, some of the things he was saying is very toxic masculinity attitude about it. So, I mean, other than that, he's a really good guy. I mean, like, I don't want him to listen to this and like think that like I'm just bashing him. Just like we all have our moments of weakness. I've done some things in D&D that I probably shouldn't have done. But, just if somebody reaches, just as a piece of advice for anybody who is listening to this campaign, if you reach something like that where you're really uncomfortable with something that happens in the game, instead of, being argumentative and confrontational and fighting about it, just talk to your DM. They'll probably, work it out with you.
Right. Especially with something like that, like a gender change. Again, I'm not saying this to slam on your friend, but being a woman shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Right.
Being a man shouldn't be that big of a deal, unless you are having issues to where you are, let's just say you're trans and you're having dysmorphia because you feel you are, like, because you're a man but you have the body that you do. I understand that.
Yeah.
But if you're playing in a fantasy game and your character switches over, it shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah. And if
There
it is
are-
for you, just talk to your DM.
Right? Yes, exactly. But obviously, there are things that are going to be triggering, and that shit should be talked about beforehand.
Yeah.
Things like, oh, I picked up this sword, and now it's cursed, and I can't put it down. No, I'm not doing that. Why though?
Yeah.
It's like where does it end? Where does it start? You can't just and not only that, this is all fake. It's all fake. If you don't like something that happened to your character in terms of like mechanics, again, I'm not talking about in the story something that is truly triggering. I'm talking about, let's just say you grow a set of horns and you don't like that, just talk to your DM.
Yeah.
It's fake. And if your DM doesn't listen to you, and that isn't like where you were going with the character, then just step away. Then if they don't want to listen to that, just step away.
Yeah, and decide how important of an issue it is to you. Like I hate to say it this way, but if somebody who's like searched for games a long time, sometimes bad D&D is better than no D&D. But at the same time, you can find games just about anywhere nowadays, especially online. I joined a group on Facebook called Nashville D&D, and like there are games opening up every week that people can join. But decide how important it is to you. I mean, if it is truly triggering, yeah, and like your DM won't work with you, get the fuck out of there, because who knows what problems you're going to run into in the future that your DM won't work with you on. But if you just like, we'll use the horn example. If you just didn't want horns and now you have horns, turn it into a character arc. Turn it into like a character goal. Be like, okay, how do I get rid of these horns? Like, this is my character's motivation now. I'm getting rid of these horns.
Right. Well, okay. I'll use a better example.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say your character is. You know what? No, this is a great example. You have a character who's like half of the character's personality is their pet, their horse, their dog, whatever, and then out of nowhere it dies. And there goes half your character's motivation. There goes half your character's story. I can see that being a problem. There'll be other people that don't see it as a problem, but that could definitely be a problem. And I think that if you came to your DM with that problem, then that's something that you should both be able to work on. Because again, we're telling a story, and if that pet was part of that story, what's the point? Yeah, that might as well just be a character death right there. And I've been there. I've played in games where, and this wasn't necessarily D&D, but this could happen in D&D. But there was heavy political overtones to it. And there are things that could happen that would be complete social character death, where your character is still alive, but just can't do anything socially anymore.
Right.
And that's essentially the death of your character. Now, this was a big group game, so it's kind of hard to be like, hey, you think maybe this shouldn't have happened? But like, let's just say that happened in D&D, and you're playing a knight or something like that, and something beyond your control just again, Tomb of Horrors. So much stuff happened beyond the player's control that it's just dumb.
Yeah.
And let's just say your character, got exiled or something like that from something that was beyond your character's control. I mean, that should be negotiable.
Yeah. But then again, if your DM is running something like that, that is also something that should be talked about in session 0. Like, if your character is going to be running something like the Tomb of Horrors, where literally if you make the wrong step, your character is completely like disintegrated and decimated, then like you should know that going in. Like, everybody should be okay with that going in.
Yeah, like definitely tell them. Oh, like for example, again, the heavy political stuff. Let people know that this shit's going to be heavy political. Because if you suffer a political death, then your character might as well be done.
Yeah.
And you know that going in.
Yep.
If you know you're going into a dungeon that is just brutal and you could die, and he's not going to, and you know what? I've had DMs tell me, hey, I'm not going to have any mercy on you in this. You know what I mean? It's like I've fudged rolls before. I've done this. I've done that. I'm not doing that in this. This is brutal. And you know that going in, and you die in
If
the
it's what you
first
sign
room,
up
then
for,
yeah.
yeah. Something I've adopted as a dungeon master, and I couldn't tell you where I got it from. I mean, like I might have come up with it myself, or got it from another dungeon master, or TikTok, or whatever. And I know we said we were going to talk about our characters, but honestly, I've spent more time DMing than playing. So
No. Well, I said that in the beginning, but the whole
yeah,
point of this
is Dungeons and
podcast is
Dragons
talking about our
experiences.
experiences in
Yeah.
D&D. Yeah.
So what I've adopted is a character wish list. Now, when I first started this wish list, I started with just as a magic item wish list. Like, write down 3 to 5 magic items that you would like to come across as a character in this campaign. And then sometimes when characters would find treasure, instead of just being the random piece of treasure that was written in the module, I'd give something from one of their wish lists. Over time, I changed this into give me 3 things, and I always had to say 3 because other than that, they'll just give me 1 or 2, or they won't write 1. Like when I say give me 3 things, it's like minimum 3 things. 3 things that you want to do, obtain, experience during this campaign. Like, give me something from your backstory that you really want tied in during this campaign. Give me an experience you want to have. Like, if you want to ride a dragon at some point in time in this campaign, write it down. If you want to get a +9 sword of dragon slaying, write it down. If you want to get, whatever it is that you want to do during this campaign, do obtain experience. If you want a beach episode, write that down, and then I will then attempt to bend the module that I'm going to be running or whatever to fit as many of those things in as I can.
Now, I will say this. A lot of DMs, and I say this from experience, from past Baron DM-ness, a lot of DMs will think that doing stuff like that, it takes away a lot of the surprise, it takes away a lot of their own creativity, it takes away... They assume it takes away too much. And it really doesn't. It gives your players a sense of control in their own story, which they need. 2, you can still make them earn these things.
And they can still be a surprise. Like when I have them write down these wish lists, it's usually for a campaign that I plan on dragging out for a year plus. And let me tell you, 3 months later, when something from their wish list shows up, they've completely forgotten they've written it down. But they still have an awesome time with it because it's something they wanted.
Yeah, I just wish more DMs were a little more open-minded with stuff like that.
Yeah.
You got me thinking about the beach episode. I was like, I'm like, why don't more D&D games have beach episodes?
I specifically gave that example for my most recent campaign I started. I was like, if you want a beach episode, write it down. If you want a hot springs episode, write it down. And nobody wrote either of those down, so it's probably not going to happen because. Let me get, if I ever get you into one of my campaigns again, that's going to be your list. It's going to be like beach episode, hot springs episode.
I'm playing a satyr too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a nosebleed through half of them. Oh yeah, you got me thinking about like wish lists and stuff like that, and then you got me thinking about magic items. And I think that another thing that I like, and this is something that my core GM, again, I'll say my home group. Now, when I say my home group, I mean like this group that I've been gaming with since I was 18. I have a core home group that I game with, so I'm going to call them my home group. The GM for my home group we don't get normal magic items. He custom makes every magic item that our characters get. And he'll put them down on a little cert and he'll give them to us. He doesn't use out of the book magic items. Now, are these balanced? Probably not. Are they fucking cool? Yes, they are. Even if they don't do much of anything, they're still awesome.
Yeah.
And just the time and effort that he puts into these items just blows my mind. It makes it all the more worth it. So I'll put out there to any GMs, if you can, just take the time make custom magic items for your people. Don't give people +1 magic items. Don't give them Holy Avengers. Don't give them, you know what I mean? Don't give them any of this stuff. Just make some fun stuff and custom make them for your character. I played a character and he made a magical sword. We'll call it a sword.
Mm-hmm.
But it was shaped in the symbol of my god's holy symbol. And
Nice.
it's almost like a chakram, and I could throw it and it glowed, and but I could also use it as a short sword kind of deal. It was just great. And he made it specifically for my character, fashioned exactly for my character.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah. And it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you want to, mix it up a little bit, then give them like the +1 stuff while you're working on these special items.
I kind of did this in the last home campaign I run, not the current one, but the one before this one. I did it without realizing I was going to do it because I found the trinket table I believe it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It might be in the Player's Handbook, but I'm pretty sure it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. There's a trinket table where you can roll a D100 and you find this random little thing, this useless thing usually, that's just interesting. And basically, anytime that my players would come across a large group of stuff, like if they found a chest with a bunch of stuff in it, a hoard with a bunch of stuff in it, if they were getting a list of treasure, I would roll on the trinket table. So they'd get the normal magic items that were written into the book there, but then I'd also give them a trinket. And then in between sessions, I would figure out things that those trinkets could be that were magical items.
You know what? I did that for the Spawn, actually.
Mm-hmm.
She was playing a Path of the Zealot kobold barbarian, and what happened? Because she was a kobold, I'm like, you know what? I'll let you roll on the trinket table. And like she rolled, and I think she got like a cubic inch of metal that couldn't identify. Well, I just ended up saying it was platinum. And when she was sleeping in the night, she found out that it had disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked down, and she had a platinum symbol of Bahamut on her chest.
Oh, that's cool.
So, which was her god, was Bahamut. And I said, it just gives you a +1 to AC. And, with barbarians being barbarians, that +1 to AC with their con and their dexterity giving them AC as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think she had a 19 AC as a kobold.
That's nuts. I'll tell you, the only reason it worked for the party that I worked for, so like something you might want to consider if you plan on using this trick as a dungeon master, nobody in the party had identify. So like anytime they got magic items, like they would make arcana checks or like detect magic or something like that and find out something was magical, but they'd have no idea what the fuck it did or how to activate it. So that gave me time to figure out how this item was activated and what it did, and I'd have them activate these items on accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the trinkets is like a hand floating in liquid in a jar. And they found this hand floating in liquid in a jar. And a few sessions later, I had figured out in my head, I'm like, if they open this jar and pour it out, it's going to grow and it's going to be a flesh golem. Or if they ever like throw it and the jar breaks, it's going to explode out. It's going to be a flesh golem grenade, right? And they were infiltrating this hunting lodge, and they found the kitchen, and the chef had his back turned, and he was working on this pot of soup. And they were like, okay, what can we do? What can we do? And one of the players went, I got this jar with a hand in it, and dumped it into the pot of soup. And then this flesh golem erupts out of this pot of soup and just proceeds to wreck everything in the kitchen. It was a fantastic moment that just like completely came out of nowhere, half planned, half not planned. Just
Oh
it was
my
awesome.
gosh.
And then that flesh golem became one of their favorite NPCs. They named him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they named him Frankie, and like I gave him a dumb voice and like a bunch of mannerisms. Like when he was talking, I'd make him scratch at his scars. Like so, I'd be literally like sitting there talking to them and scratching my neck and like stuff like that, and like they fell in love with Frankie, so they took him everywhere they could.
You know what? You bring that up, and I'm hoping. Let's just say not him, but do you have as a GM? Do you have a favorite NPC that wasn't supposed to be adopted by your party, but was adopted by the party? Not counting Frankie, because we just heard about him.
Well, hold on. I am going to say Frankie because I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Frankie.
Okay.
Toward the end of that campaign, they were atop a Sky Giant's castle. And they got there via Griffins, but the Griffins had left. And the character who had, I guess, attached themselves to Frankie the most, he and Frankie just happened, once again, unplanned, got knocked off the castle by one of these giants. And they were falling to the ground. And Frankie grabbed him up midair, wrapped him up in his arms, because of course Frankie's huge, he's a flesh golem,
Right.
and spun his momentum so like he was back down, so like he was hugging this character, and like this character was on top of him. This was also the character who poured him into the soup, so it was the character who birthed him, and he said, "I love you, Daddy,"
Oh.
and then hit the ground. And that was the end of Frankie, but he saved that character.
Right.
And like I got my characters to cry. Like I got all my players to cry, so like he was pretty awesome.
I love doing that, by the way.
Yeah. The ones the characters decide to adopt, the only other one I have that I can even really think of, and I don't know if he was a favorite, but if you ever happen to run, or anyone listening to this happens to run, the D&D starter set with Lost Mines of Phandelver, there is a halfling boy in Phandalin. I forget what his actual name is, but he goes by Carp. Everyone knows him as Carp. And my party took a very special interest in Carp. Like, they would go back to Phandalin just to check on Carp. They would bring him trinkets and treasures. He was just him and his mom. His dad died a long time ago because he was an adventurer, and Carp wanted to grow up to be an adventurer. So they fostered this thing, and then they ended up going on like a trip up and down the Sword Coast that took them like 8 years. And when they got back near Phandalin, they were under attack by a half dragon and a bunch of cultists, and Carp came out of nowhere. And it was 8 years later. It was like he was like 6 years old when they left him. So like he was like a teenager now, and he had become a ranger. And like he came in dual wielding swords and like saved the people who had adopted him and fostered his, want to be an adventurer. None of that is written in those books.
Right.
None of that. But like that's where I thought that character's character arc should go, and they loved it, and they went and had him armor made with like a carp symbol on it. Like it was really cool.
That is really cool. It's I would have to say mine is one that I ran a few years ago when I was running the Wolf. It was one that I just kind of did. Actually, the first time I met Ray.
Okay.
So we were playing, and they came across this goblin. I think that I can't remember exactly what happened, but they cleared out. I think they cleared out a goblin camp, and they found this goblin tied up next to the fire.
Okay.
And you know what? And I think I've told you about this guy too. And so they saved him, but they were dicks to him. They were just dicks to him. But they were still nicer than what the goblins were, because they were going to eat him.
Right.
And I think that they either were going to turn him into sausage, or they were calling him sausage. So the group ended up calling him sausage because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they called him sausage is what they called him. So, but they ended up adopting him, and they were a dick to him. But anybody else that was a dick to him, they were automatically like, they just were not having it.
Right. Don't mess with sausage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really funny.
I will say it wasn't one players adopted, but one of the first long-term characters I got to play after being a DM for so long eventually has become an NPC in like every subsequent campaign I've ran after that. And not just my character, honestly, like I let people know when they start campaigns with me, I'm like, if you create a character and we end this campaign and that character's still alive, thank you for the new character. That character is mine now. It exists in my world. You're not playing it anymore. This character belongs to me. They are a hero. You know what I mean? Like this is not the end of their life. They're influential in this world now. They're going to change things. And they'll show up. And I don't even care if that player who played that character is playing in these future campaigns. Their characters will still show up just because they're my, pool of NPCs now. But the story that the character I'm talking about, the character I played, his name was Nemorian Pak. He was a gnome. He started out as a gnome artificer.
Okay.
Due to his imminent death, he made a deal with 3 goddesses, reset his levels, and became a level 1 warlock.
Okay.
Rather than dying. Unbeknownst to him, when they reset him to level 1, they took him back to the day he was level 1. Like time travel.
Okay.
But because he was somewhere else, now the level 1 artificer existed, and the level 1 warlock existed in the same timeline.
Okay.
So the next campaign I was running in was with Nemorian Pak, the level 1 warlock, and a time when I wasn't there, the rest of the party ran into Nemorian Pak, the artificer. And they had no idea what was going on. They were like, "We know you." And he was like, "No, you don't, I promise." So, due to a bunch of time travel shenanigans and long backstory I won't get into, eventually Nemorian Pak becomes infatuated and in love with one of the goddesses he made a deal with, Timora, which is the standard Forgotten Realms goddess of luck.
Also Danner's preferred goddess.
And
I'm sorry, Danner's preferred goddess after the organizers of RPGA told him that he couldn't worship Mask.
So Timora started to love him back. They realized they could never be together. So in order to be with her, Nemorian started the journey to become a god. Because of all the time-hopping shenanigans, eventually becomes the demigod of time. Also is the head of one of the largest adventuring guilds in the version of Forgotten Realms that I run. Still trying to be with his love, but still can't. But yeah, he shows up in every one of my campaigns now, still on a quest to someday be with his love, Timora.
Aw, that's sweet. So, what would be your favorite character of all time be?
If it's not Nim, because I just spent a bunch of time talking about Nim, it's tough. It's a toss-up. But I'm going to give it to... Right after I finished that Tomb of Annihilations game. Like I said, I had been running RPGA for a while. I ran Tomb of Annihilations for my wife and a bunch of my friends. One of my friends then, in order to give me a break from DMing, decided to run a one-shot. But he came over, and it was just him DMing and me and my wife playing, and that was it. It was a very small game. It's a very quick game. And it was a very classic story. It was basically the Ice Queen. And I played a character I called Seath Whitehatch. He was a white dragonborn, dragon soul sorcerer. I chose mostly ice spells. He had been exiled from his clan because his clan, as most dragonborns, hated dragons, and like he was born with dragon magic, and they were like, "Nope, you're out of here." And my friend who was running this campaign said, "You're going to be starting this level. Go ahead and pick 3 magic items. Send them to me. I'll make sure it's balanced." And I was like, instead of 3 magic items, can I have this one? And it was an intelligent item. It was a spear that contained the soul of Wivley the White Wormling.
Oh my god. What a name.
Yeah. So And it was in one of the 4th edition books. Like, you can go find this item in the 4th edition books. And I was like, can I have this, this spear? And he was like, you know what? Yeah, that'll be cool to RP. So, like, he RP'd Wivley the entire time.
Okay.
And I just, even though I only played one game, one shot, one day with that character, I had so much fun with that character. And the way I built the sorcerer to be a tank. I took feats and features to the point where I could wear studded leather armor. All of my spells I could cast at melee range through a dagger instead of having to be at range. So, like, I would literally be doing battle up front, melee fighting with a dagger and casting the spells through the dagger. Almost like what's it called in 5th edition now? They got those sword mages. I forget what they're called.
I don't remember. Are you? No. Elder Knight? No.
No, they're actually like a wizard
Sword Coast?
class. Yeah, it's in the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. I know.
I know what you're talking about, though. I know. What
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah. Yeah, almost like that, but it was a sorcerer, and like had a lot of fun with that character, and I would love the chance to revisit him at some point in time.
Oh yeah, definitely know that feeling.
And you?
Okay, so this is kind of like a two-parter. So the friend that you went over to visit,
Mm-hmm.
he ran a game, and it started out with him saying, "Okay, look, you're nobles, you're all nobles of your particular culture, but make a character and then run with it." So, we had someone make a human noble, we had someone else make a maybe there was 2 human nobles, I'm not sure. So I made a halfling.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I did it was because halflings don't really have nobility. At least in this world, they didn't. And so I made a character who their culture were refugees from their home. So they lived in the human city. They took them in. They essentially there was like a public park, and they let the halflings move into the public park, and they just kind of terraformed it so that they could have burrows and stuff. They have a mayor who was essentially the most noble out of all of them, but they don't understand nobility. The humans don't understand the halfling culture, so the humans essentially treated the mayor as a noble, a halfling noble, which they didn't understand, but whatever. And then his son, Dylan, they treated like a prince. Again, the halflings didn't understand, but that's just how the humans worked, and Dylan was young enough to just kind of grow up into that. Well, they gave Dylan a job, and the halflings had something called a warden, and that's kind of what he was working towards, is what he wanted to be, but the humans didn't understand, again, what a warden was. So they also gave him the warden job, which was a dog warden. And the humans laughed about it, but he took a lot of pride in his work. He ended up becoming a dog breeder. He ended up getting all the stray dogs in the city, taking care of them, rehoming them, training the ones that could be trained. He started breeding like very fearsome riding dogs, very effective hunting dogs, but he hadn't got to the point to where like the humans had caught on and they're like, oh, these are valuable.
Mm-hmm.
He's just doing it. So, but he eventually learned that his culture had also lost their heritage, their religion, their gods, and he found evidence of one of their gods. By the way, he started out as like a cavalier, a
Right.
fighter, but as he learned more and more and more, he decided, you know what, I'm going to worship this god. And
Right.
the god's name was Valen, and he eventually became a paladin of this god. Long story short, in this version of the game, he ended up finding a new homeland for his people. He moved them all out of the human city, and but yeah, and brought back the worship of the old god and all that fun stuff.
That's awesome.
Oh, it was such a good time. And then I played him again in my home game, and again, it's kind of the same story, but I had to change it a little bit. But what was cool is his ending. They got all the way to the end, and there was just this world-ending threat, and they were all on a mountain, And the way I played him is he's a halfling, but he is extraordinarily strong. So he's like the Hercules of halflings. So, but in the end, while calling on his god and stuff like that, the whole mountain was collapsing on them, and he raised his hands and held up the mountain long enough for his friends to crawl out, and the whole thing just shattered on him.
Right.
I think they came back later, and there was a cave there now, and in the middle of the cave was a stone statue of Dylan standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, and like throughout the course of everybody's epilogue, everybody died except for the dwarf, and he lived to like a ripe old age, surrounded by his family. And when he finally let go and he opened up his eyes, Dylan was standing there, and he's like, "Hey, come on, we got to get you over to the other side." And
That's awesome.
He took him to the dwarven afterlife, and he hung out there with him for a little bit, and yeah, it was really cool.
It's, they talk about, nobody wants to see their character die, but like if your character can have an awesome end, that is just as cool as everything they'll do up until that point.
If your character ends, period, it should have an awesome end.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, even if like through the dice rolls, your character is about to die in a dumb way, man, that DM should step in and just be like, I need to make this a little more epic than what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think any character should die for a dumb reason, unless the player is being dumb.
Yeah. If it's a play stupid game, win stupid prizes type situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely let him win that stupid prize, but I don't know. I just don't think that any character death should be lackluster in the least.
Right.
What have you ever had any characters die?
Let me think.
Well, while you're thinking, I'll tell you about my character's stupid death that pissed me the fuck off. We were playing RPGA. Danner, he had a polymorph ring or something like that, and they were fighting underwater creatures in like a river. So he I think he was a shark, and like he was down there swimming and biting and doing all this kind of stuff. Well, I don't know what I did to piss off this GM, but he definitely had it in for me. But he dispelled magic on me, and it got rid of the effect. Okay, that's fine. But he followed up with, but since you were a shark and you were breathing water at the time, your lungs are filled with water. And I'm like, okay.
That's kind of dumb.
And he was like, and what'd he say? I can't remember what it was, but like he was looking up rules or whatever, and he's like, and with your lungs being filled with water, you die in a round or in a turn. So basically, at the end of my turn, I died. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. Okay. Wow. So my friend, Jeff, the forever GM, we were high enough. Oh, we were also high level at this point too.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, really? So, and Jeff was just like not believing that this GM was doing this. And he's like, okay. He burned 3 wishes because first off, he was going to dive in there and get me. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you can't see him. He's all the way at the bottom and you can't see him. And it was like, okay. I was like, well, look at my character. I'm covered in gold buckles. You telling me that he can't see like a sparkle, nothing? Mm-hmm. And he's like, finally, he was like, fine, make a roll or some shit like that. And he made a roll and he made it. And he was like, okay, fine, you see him. Like, he was mad that he could see me. And I'm like, why are you fucking mad, man?
Like he wanted your character to die.
Yeah. So he found me, brought me back up. Oh, he blew 2 wishes. That's what it was. He brought me back up and blew 2 wishes. And I think one of them was to bring me back to life. The other one was so that I didn't lose experience from it, because I think it was still AD&D.
Yeah.
And I was just like, God damn it.
Nemorian should have died. Nim, the character I was telling you about, but with his last breath, he made that deal with the warlock and reset his levels. Which, I mean, like, in mechanics, Nemorian died. I mean, like, I made a completely different character sheet starting over at level 1, and due to a timeline switch, so it's like that version of Nemorian died, and a new version of Nemorian was born. And then I had one other character die, but I had asked for it. I was playing in a campaign. It was some sort of special supplement for 3.5, where it was like all about sword-wielding nobility, and I couldn't tell you what it was, but basically, when you pick your character, every character was a fighter, but instead of picking a class, you picked like one of these 9 sword styles, and all of your characters' abilities and everything they could do and their stats were all based off of one of these 9 sword styles. And there was like no magic in this campaign. I was having a bit of fun with it, but the time and day which it was running was really conflicting with my schedule. So eventually I just came to my DM. I was like, look, I can't be in this campaign anymore, but if I'm going to leave, can we, at least make it cool? Like, you know what I mean? Let's kill my character. Let's have it go down. And like I ended up going down in an awesome one-on-one sword duel with a pirate captain where the only reason I lost is because, he's a pirate and he cheated and a bunch of other people intervened and I ended up going overboard and being in full armor and carrying weapons and, almost dead from the fight already. Like, I just didn't come back up. So,
Yeah.
the duel was cool, though.
Yeah, but, I don't know.
And, like, me fighting that pirate captain, like, it was like a fleet of ships against a fleet of ships, and, like, the whole duel made it so the good fleet of ships, my side of fleet of ships, could get to where they needed to go while I had him distracted. So it all went to serve a purpose.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the payoff, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that everything in in Deathwise in D&D should serve a purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if it's just I got a bad taste in my mouth just thinking about this dumb deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the deaths should be in a way to. I honestly think that every death in D&D should be there to reward or punish a player.
Right.
Yes, I believe that some players need to be punished,
or at
but,
least their actions.
Again,
Yeah.
we're going back to the whole stupid game, stupid prizes. But at the same time, if you're doing a great job with your character, if you're not doing a shitty job with your character, not everybody can have on days when they're playing. But, as long as you're not being a shitty player, that character death should be you closing the book on that character, and there should be something to it.
Right.
Even if it's, even if it's a dumb death and there's nothing you can do, and there's always something you can do. But let's just say you can't think of anything on the fly, and it's just like, oh, they fall off the mountain and this damage just fucking kills them. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm sorry. Do something later. Like, bring something up to where they're like, bring back their ghost, or maybe even bring in like long lost child, or it's easy to do with a bard, I guess, bring in a child, and I guess they did that with Critical Role. I still haven't seen that season though, but something. Just do something, people. I don't think I've ever had to deal with a character. No, I take that back. Speaking of stupid games and stupid prizes, I'll tell you about the time I was DMing and I killed someone's character. I felt bad later and I brought him back, but so they went into a mountain and they took it all the way up, and all these corridors that they were in were just empty. I gave them, or empty of people, I should say. They could tell it was an old dwarven stronghold in a mountain. They found old forges and stuff like that. And I gave them, it's like, you know what? There's some weapons, there's some armor there that are serviceable. You can get some stuff. Okay. Well, they kept going in. Well, they finally made it to like the entryway of the mountain, like the big doors, entryway, and there is just gold everywhere. Gold and gems and just bars of metal and armor and just all kinds of stuff, all piled in a heap. On top of the heap was a colossal white dragon.
Oof.
I mean, huge.
Yeah.
Like, I put in the highest category of dragon I could in there.
Like ancient or whatever it is. That's like, yeah.
Everything was covered in ice, and they were walking around. And I think that at one point when they were walking around, the dragon opened its eye, but it didn't do anything because they're just walking around and it's an ancient dragon.
Yeah.
So
it's like it's like seeing an ant walk through your, like, it's like,
right. But then finally, one of them took something, and I'm just like, it's watching you.
Yeah.
So it fucking busted out of the ice, and they ran back down the corridor because it was just a corridor.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that it could come down there, right? So they run halfway, and they're like, oh, we're safe. They hear footsteps, and they look back, and there is a elven woman with white hair and a white dress. Her nails are white, her eyes are white, her teeth are a little too white, and she seems to be almost steaming. And it's like, I cannot impress upon you enough that this is the dragon still coming after you.
Right.
So they ran. They even dropped the shit and ran. At this point in my head, this dragon is just here to scare them out of her shit.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't want to waste too much energy on these things because she can just wipe the floor with them.
Right.
Well, this one dude kept trying to get into a door that he just couldn't unlock, getting closer. Everybody else was running.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, man, you're just going to have to run. He's like, no, I'm going to keep doing this. Okay. Gets closer. He keeps doing it. He's like, you're not going to be able to do it, man. And then finally she got close enough, and I had my NPC character that was running around with them step up in front of him, and she just backhanded his head off of his head.
Mm-hmm.
Or his head off of his body. Like, I just killed my NPC just to get him to the point that it was just like, look, you can't beat that NPC in a fight, and she just casually lopped his head off. No, I'm going to keep doing this. I was like, okay, she makes it up to you, and she just kills you. And he got mad. He, like, slammed his shit down. He was like, okay. He starts packing his stuff up, and I'm just like, okay. And finally, we, the rest of the group, I was like, go get something to drink.
Mm-hmm.
Go do something. So I sat and talked with him for a little bit. And I will say that one added thing is that the guy that was playing was actually diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Mm.
So I think that he came into this with a huge chip on his shoulder. He's very emotional. And I think that maybe he was probably projecting on this scene.
Sure.
But yeah, I told him, I was like, look, man, and that's cool. But I was giving you every chance to, this was going to be a big bad guy, and you guys just got introduced to them, and I'm introducing the concept of you don't have to fight every battle.
Right.
So we talked about it and stuff like that, and we ended up doing a reincarnation scene on the character, and I let him choose what he wanted to be reincarnated as.
Yeah.
So it ended up pretty cool. But, again, talk about stupid games, stupid prizes.
Yeah. By the way, I also wanted to say this like 3 or 4 stories ago, but my ADD brain keeps derailing. When we say my friend, and if you are listening to this podcast, we have not forgotten your name. We have not forgotten who you are. We just say my friend because we haven't talked to you and we have no idea whether or not you want your name out there. So please understand that's the only reason we say my friend, because, we don't know.
I legit just don't know your name. I'm sorry. I think it's Tom. Maybe?
There are some who called me Tim.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, no, I do the same thing. I just don't know if people want to be mentioned in the podcast.
Yeah.
Or not. So
be it positive, negative, or somewhere in between. We're not saying it because we think your identity needs to be protected. We just don't know if you want to be out there.
That and most people that listen to this, you know what? They don't know you, Jeff.
Yeah.
They don't know. So if I said, oh yeah, the one time I was hanging out with Jeff, they're going to be like, who?
Yeah.
I will say that Maxwell is in my home group, and he's actually a guild member who has been on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the Cyberpunk podcast, so I guess I could mention Maxwell, but I won't. What a fool.
I think I've only ever had a play stupid games, win stupid prizes moments with a player like a couple of times. I think the big one that stands out to me is the one that he knew exactly what he was doing and he knew he was probably going to die, but like he just could not do it. Like he was
is it what his character would do?
Well, no, he just wanted to know what would happen. He was like, okay,
Legit.
Bit of backstory. I had just finished a 1-year-long campaign with a bunch of brand new players. with the Wrath of the Dragon Queen, or whatever it's called, one of the first 2-book long D&D 5e campaigns. Horde of the Dragon Queen, whatever it was. Tyranny of Dragons, whatever. And I had taken it easy on them for like that entire year because they were new to D&D. I was like, this is a 100% fun experience. Like, no real challenge here. Everybody's going to live. Like, that's just what it was. Next, we decided to do Ravenloft. We were going to do Curse of Strahd. So I let them know in all the weeks leading up to it, session 0, character creation, the whole thing. I was like, look, I've been going easy on y'all. I've been fudging rolls. I've been doing this. I'm like, this is it. We are playing hardcore D&D from here on out. Like, if you do something that's going to get you killed and the dice fall in such a way that you're going to die, you're going to die. Like, think about your actions. You know, don't do something stupid for stupid's sake. You know what I mean? Let's do this. In Curse of Strahd, there is a pre-adventure called Death House that's supposed to get your characters from level 1 to the level they need for Curse of Strahd. I don't know, remember if that's 3 or 5 or whatever. And a lot of current D&D modules do this, where they're like, there's a nice little introductory adventure. It also kind of sets the tone for Ravenloft and Barovia and, like, you know, what kind of stuff you're going to be coming up against. And they had gone through the entire Death House, and they were in the basement, and there was a statue. And I forget what all the omens were, but, like, it was obvious that you were not supposed to touch this statue. There was, like, holding an orb or something like that. And one of my players
said, "Don't touch this statue."
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and not to mention, there's a whole bunch of stuff they had touched up to that point that led to bad consequence. Like, I believe in the basement of that house, one of the doors is a mimic. You go to open a door, and that motherfucker's a mimic. So, and everyone had known up until that point what they were getting in for, so he let everybody else leave that room. He was like, whatever's about to happen, it'll happen to my character and not to yours.
That's fair.
But what happens...
Okay.
What happens when you touch that statue is a bunch of wraiths come out and attack you.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone were to touch that statue, it's definitely not meant to be soloed. You know, like, it's D&D. You never split the party.
Right.
And if you know anything about wraiths, like, not only do they kill you, they turn you into, like, another wraith or ghost or whatever.
Right.
So he got wraithed. But he knew it. Like, he was okay with it. He was like, I knew this was going to happen. Something like this was going to happen to my character. And I think I might have laid it on a little too thick with the bad things could happen to your character. And then after a bad thing happened to the character, because later on, 2 sessions later, we had another character die because there was a vampire or a vampire fledgling or something like that. It was basically the priest's son, and, like, he had his son locked up in the basement because he had contracted the curse of vampirism. And 2 of the characters decided to go down there alone, and the vampire attacked them. One of them escaped. The other one decided to stay and fight all by himself. You're not supposed to solo a vampire. Like, everybody else decided, no, this is too dangerous. We're going to stay away from this vampire. And the other one, as soon as he realized they were getting their asses handed to him, he bounced. So you had one character all by himself locked in the cellar with a vampire. So then he died. And honestly, I think in either one of those situations, if everyone had banded together and fought, then probably nobody would have died. I mean, I can't say 100% nobody would have died, but probably nobody would have died. But since both of those encounters ended up being soloed, they both ended up dying. So... yeah, there is a case of play stupid games, win stupid prizes there, right? Because, like, obviously, don't touch the statue. Don't fight a vampire by yourself. But, like, I also do take some responsibility because I might have laid it on a little too thick about how dangerous things were going to be, so people didn't want to give them backup because they knew they could die too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of, like, hard to... because it's almost like one of those, like you were saying, it is kind of like a play stupid game, but at the same time, it's like, but it's like he knew something bad was going to happen. And yes, completely avoidable.
Yep.
But it was just like, look, my curiosity will not allow this to go untouched. So I'm going to need you all to leave.
Yep.
Because I'm not risking you getting hurt or dying. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Yep. And he was like, "Oh, that's what happened. A bunch of wraiths come out."
That's fair. I could totally see the character doing that too. It's like,
Huh.
oh,
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Neat.
Well, how about that?
Let me write this down in a journal that as they're killing me, I'll write this journal page so if someone else comes along, they can read my journal and learn from my mistakes.
Yep. That would be funny. Just hurry up and write it down. Don't do this because the wraiths are like, oh, don't do that. Then they'll know. Don't. All right, fine.
You're going to be a wraith here too in a minute. You're going to be on our side. Like, don't ruin it for us.
Now I'm just thinking about maybe some messed up encounters that I've put my people through. I can't really think of anything. I almost killed a group of people. I will say that, okay, two of my favorite encounters that I've done, you've been privy to, and the other one you have not. The one you've been privy to has actually made Mimics one of my favorite monsters ever.
Yeah, privy to. How about like the main victim of?
Right. Well, okay, no, you weren't. You elected yourself as main victim.
Look, I didn't say intended victim. I just said victim. Like,
no, yeah, I'll tell everybody out there that this encounter was specifically meant to entrap my daughter in a mimic.
And she wasn't there.
Oh, she was there. She was there, and you were like, no, I'll do it.
I'll tell you, okay, I don't think I've ever told you my side to this about why I was so insistent.
No, because it's just funny seeing it how it was. I'll tell people the original, like, this is how we saw it. I set up a dumbwaiter mimic, and it was big enough for a kobold to fit into comfortably. Like, a kobold could use it as an actual elevator. So I'm like, oh, the whole group will be like, oh, we'll put the kobold in there. But then Rick steps up and he's like, no, I'll do it. And I'm just like, okay. And then hilarity ensued. But go ahead, tell your story. It's probably going to ruin it for me, but go ahead.
Well, I had created a warlock, okay?
Right.
And up until that point, everybody was expecting me to be this squishy magic user. Okay. And because the questions were being asked, like, hey, could you detect magic on this? Could you run arcana on this? Could you do this? Could you do that? I was doing it. Then I realized, mostly because you pointed out to me, that we had another character in the party who that was their thing. And I was kind of unintentionally, like, not giving them their chance to shine. So I was like, you know what, you're right. So, like, the next session, which is the session that the dumbwaiter came up in, I was like, I am an infiltration expert. I made class warlock, but I am essentially a rogue. I used the criminal background. I chose stealth. I chose lock picking. Like, I am your
rogue. Did we?
We didn't.
Right.
So, like, that's why I'm your rogue. I'm your scout. I'm the guy who scouts ahead. So I was trying to solidify myself in that position. So because people were still like magic guy, and I was like, no, I can cast spells, but this is not who I am. I was trying to solidify my character as the infiltration expert, so the other people who did fill these other roles could do their thing. So we were like, someone needs to go in this dumbwaiter to scout the basement, and I was like, this is it. This is going to solidify me as the scout. I am the infiltration guy. And then I was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It still was hilarious. Don't get me wrong. And honestly, because of the way I built my character, it actually turned out well. Because of my armor of Agathis, I made it so, like, every time that mimic tried to bite down on me, it was taking damage. So...
Yeah, she may not have made it out of that. Now, I will say that she was playing a barbarian kobold and probably could have taken a shit ton of damage and probably messed it up from the inside. But I think the encounter was probably easier with you inside its mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still funny.
Yes, it was hilarious.
It's just I was really really proud of making a mimic into a dumbwaiter.
Yeah, that's
almost
good.
Like if mimics knew what dumbwaiters were, they'd never be a treasure chest again.
Well, like, I always thought the mimic, like, I have never made a mimic a treasure chest, ever. Now, if I'm playing a pre-written module and a mimic is a treasure chest, I'll, like, kind of go, I guess, and I'll let it happen. But if I'm putting in a mimic, it is never a treasure chest. Everyone expects the treasure chest.
I'm gonna make a swimming pool mimic at some point. Watch.
But if there was a podcast that we were gonna have where I was gonna tell my side of that story, the D&D Experiences one is probably the one to do it.
All right.
The last time I used a mimic, I tried to make it obvious that it was a mimic, right? They had gone into this gnome fortress, and the king had gone crazy because he had seen shapeshifters. And they're shapeshifters about, be careful. Like, everybody was trying to warn people, there's a monster, it's turning into things, it's eating people, it's setting up this mimic, right? They go to sleep in this fortress, and they wake up, and my barbarian's backpack is there twice. There's 2 backpacks. Like, there's the backpack where you remember setting it, and there's another backpack right next to it that looks exactly like it. I thought that would be obvious, right? Like, this is a mimic. What'd she do? I'm going to search through it.
Oh, okay.
You're going to search through the second backpack that looks just like yours. Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool. Roll for initiative.
Legit, though.
Yeah.
Then I'll have to say, like, the other one I'm really, really proud of, it was probably, like, the most I've done to pre-plan for an encounter. Because I've adjusted monsters on the fly. You guys would have gotten killed by ghosts if I hadn't adjusted them. But I made this green dragon, and it was in between. I made it in between a wormling and a young dragon.
Okay.
Because they don't really have it in between.
Right.
One was too tough. One was way too weak. So basically, I can't remember the stats, but I put the stats halfway in between. And I made it have wings, but it couldn't fly on them. It could only glide. Okay. So it had to climb up a tree and jump off and glide to get to them. So there was a point in the game where it climbed up a tree and saw them in fireball formation, and it did. I think it was a layer action, and it busted up like a hedge around them. I know that it. I need to read it again, but like basically it could do a wall or it could do a circle or something like that.
Right.
So basically I did a circle around them, and it basically made a bowl. And it was up there, and it jumped off, swooped, and like it was using legendary actions and stuff like that. It swooped and breathed into the bowl and swooped away, which created a like, okay, well, go ahead and make a constitution roll for the breath. And they did. And then the next turn, I was like, okay, make it again, because that breath is still in there.
Yep.
And they were thinking that, it was just a breath weapon, once gone. It's like, nope.
That's the thing about a poisonous cloud. Like, it's, yeah.
It made it so that it couldn't just disperse.
Had it been a different color dragon, then it might have been a different story. But green, them poisonous clouds, man.
Whew. And I used it in a way that wasn't in the book, but made a lot of sense and made it more interesting. And it was definitely a fight.
Yeah.
The only thing I felt bad about is that our player who made a character who was specifically a dragon slayer, had to leave for work before we could get to the dragon.
Oh man, that stinks.
Yeah, I felt real bad.
It always sucks when you've built your character for a certain way and then your character doesn't get a chance to shine in that way. It sucks even more if you're as a dungeon master built them that chance to shine and then they still don't get to do it.
Yep, that was literally what that was. It was this game, we're going to do this, and I don't know if I just didn't know that he was going to not be there, or I thought it was going to get there sooner. I can't remember, but I felt so bad.
That's another thing I'd like to say. If you are a DM, if your characters have a certain ability or have a certain build, give them a chance to really use it. Like, for example, let's say you have a player and they're playing a monk, and the moment they reach the level where they get deflect missiles to where they can knock arrows out of the sky or even catch them and throw them back, that DM never fires another arrow at that monk.
Right.
And then they never get to use that ability. And they never get to
Yep.
feel cool catching an arrow at the sky and throwing it back at an archer. Like, don't do that. Now, okay, if you have like 3 archers and like one of them fires at the monk and the monk catches that arrow and throws it back at the first archer, it makes sense that the other archers might not fire at that monk after that. But
Right.
like, those archers don't know that monk can do that. You know, they have no idea. Let it happen.
Yeah. I think it is not only responsibility of the DM to challenge their players, but it's the responsibility of the DM to give their players a moment to shine. You have to give them a moment to use their abilities. You have to get like the abilities that they have on them. You have to give them the chance to use those. You have to give them the ability to incorporate their backstory into the game.
Yep.
In some way, you know what I mean?
I'll give 2 examples when I had great big fights planned and my players just completely decimated them by using their characters' abilities. Now, these are all things that as a DM, if I wanted them to have a great big fight, I could have been like, oh, that doesn't work because. One of them was there was a dungeon, and written in that dungeon there was a back way in. And completely by accident, my players stumbled upon the back way in instead of the main way in. They failed forward room after room, accidentally finding all the ways to creep right up on like the boss of that dungeon, who was like a wizard, like an evil wizard. And the way they ended up entering this wizard's room, he had their back to them, and the rogue was the first one to the door. And with rolls, he managed to creep up on this wizard before the wizard even knew it was there, completely crit on a sneak attack, and before the wizard even knew any of them were there, he had assassinated this wizard. And it was supposed to be the boss of the dungeon. It was supposed to be this great big fight. But just because their scouted all the right ways, sometimes by accident, and then he got his crit off on an assassination attempt, I'm like, yeah, I think maybe it might even have been, and I'm sorry if you're listening to this and this ruins it for you. I think it might even have been to the point where like the wizard would have ended with like 2 hit points left. But like with how much damage they had done, I was like, yeah, he's dead. I was like, that's it. That's like the end of this wizard.
Right.
And then most recently in a campaign, I was going to have them fighting an entire horde of zombies. Like it was like 30 zombies all in this one great big room. It was going to be a great big fight. And then my cleric realized they had just gotten Destroy Undead as a channeled divinity ability. And because they're zombies, their CR is only 1/2.
Yeah.
And the way Destroy Undead is written, like if they fail their check, they're dead. It's over. Like there is no fight, there's no nothing. They completely decimated the entire horde of zombies in a turn because they had Destroy Undead. Like their death cleric walked in, held up that holy symbol, and just like that was the end of the horde. There was that. Now I had planned this great big fight with all these things in it, and I was just like, nope. I was like, your character is just badass. Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, that shit happens too.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're first starting. Let's just say with like 5th edition, you first start out with 5th edition, and you're like, "Ooh, I got these challenge ratings, and I'm going to use these challenge ratings to get the perfect adventure." And then you throw them in there, and it's either they wipe the fucking floor with them,
Mm-hmm.
or you annihilate them in like the first turn. Like again, I talk about it a lot, but that ghost encounter that you guys went into,
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't adjusted them, I picked them specifically because of their challenge rating.
Right.
And if I hadn't adjusted them, you guys would have died of old age.
I think I would have
Or
been
not of old
fine.
age. Most of them would have died of old
I
age.
would have
and
been
then
fine. I think I don't remember what race everyone else was playing, but I know the Tabaxi would have.
would have been fine?
No, would have died.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The kobold would have died.
The kobold would have died. Yeah. I mean, like aging 100 years is nothing to like an elf or a lot of times even a half elf. But like, yeah, a human, a tabaxi, and a lot of other races, yeah, definitely, you're absolutely right.
Yep, it's rough.
Hmm.
Really, but you take away those characters like that, and what do you got? And you know what? Let's just say, and they can do that frequently. They don't just do it once and then done. They can do it
Hmm.
multiple times. You know, even the characters that were like in their 20s and they normally live to be, let's just say, 90.
Hmm.
You know, you hit them a couple times though, and they're all of a sudden 60,
Yeah,
and they don't just age 10 years. It's a roll.
yeah,
You could age up to, I believe, 40 years. So, you know, you're in your 20s and you make one roll and all of a sudden you're 60. As far as I'm concerned, you hit 60, like if you hit 60 like that and you don't know your body anymore,
yeah.
you're not very effective.
Nope.
As far as I'm concerned, you're going to be down. You're going to be you're going to be on disadvantage.
Yep.
Or you're
At
at
the
least going to
very
have a
least.
level of exhaustion or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm
the only
not
way.
saying you can't have. I'm not saying you can't have 60-year-old adventures. I'm saying if you go from your 20s to your 60s in a matter of a second.
And unless you've got a party full of like characters who could live well into several hundred years, several thousand years. I think I did the math on this once because my character, one of my players, was playing a wood elf druid, and like wood elves already live to be a ridiculous age. And then I believe it's written in there that if you're a druid, even if you are human, like your maximum age like multiplies. So, like, if you're an elf druid, you're living thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, whatever it is. Like, I forget the math, but I did it, and it was ridiculous. I mean, if you don't have a character full of those types of players, like, I don't know at what point you'd be able to effectively use those ghosts. You know?
Yep, the only way you could do it is if you had like characters with specific protections against stuff like that.
Hmm.
But even then, it's like, what kind of protections could you have? Like honestly, what kind of protections could you have?
I have no idea. I mean, like, I'd have to look up the monster block, and even then, like, there might not even be anything in the written in the book. Like, as a dungeon master, you might have to like write in your own magic item, like ghost oil or something like that, that you can rub yourself down with in order to counter those effects.
Yeah, it's rough. But you know, I mean, there could also just be like maybe you have something that is protection against like negative energy, and you count that as a negative energy attack. I don't
Yeah,
I don't
something.
know. Or if you have resistance to sonic attacks.
Yeah,
Reaching at this
yeah.
point, but
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you are, I think a big problem with D&D is like horror is difficult to do. I mean, like, if you are trying to scare your players, that's scary. I mean, like, if they're not playing an elf, if Mister Level 3 Human Fighter comes up against something like that, that's scary. That is something that fighter should run from. That fighter should not stay and fight at that point.
yeah, actually, the best way to use ghosts is to fully make sure your characters know what the fuck these things do,
Hmm.
and then have them see one walking through the house. It doesn't see you, but you see it.
Hmm.
Now what?
What you gonna do?
Right, because that would be scary as fuck.
Yep.
I mean, like honestly, as a player, like especially, oh my god, if I was by myself and I
Yeah.
saw one ghost, I could be fucking level 10, a level 10 human fighter, and see a ghost in the other room, and be like, oh my god.
If I'm gonna fight this thing, I better figure out a way to take it out in one turn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hmm.
Because you know I'm already like 40. I don't need this shit.
You're reaching through your bag of holding. Where'd that silver sword go? Like,
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, even with like a magic item, it's like
hmm,
if you don't fucking kill that thing first hit.
yep.
Well, that's the other thing too. They were they're resistant to non-magical weapons, and you guys
That aren't
didn't have-
silvered. Yeah, non-magical weapons
Right.
that aren't silvered. Yep.
but at the same time, I was thinking, well, no, but the challenge rating,
Yeah.
you guys should be fine.
Yeah.
I think they were challenge rating 1 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's like going back and looking at it, it's like there's no way.
It's one of those
No
things
way.
where, once again, I think it depends on, you have to look at your party. Like I said, if we had a party full of my character, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I was playing a character that if I'd aged 200 years, no big deal, right? Plus, my main weapon was a magical weapon because I was a Hexblade Warlock. So I'm doing regular damage. It doesn't matter if I age that much. If we had a couple other wizards or something like that also doing magical damage because of spells, and like if they were elves, like there is a party out there where that ghost is like a challenge rating 1. You know what I mean? Like it is literally no big deal.
Right.
But like if you've got humans to backsies, anything that ages like a normal human and doesn't have some sort of magical damage, like if it's a martial class and didn't prepare for it, so like they don't have like a silver sword or something, like yeah, absolutely, that's devastating.
It would be a cool way to use those, like use the ghosts, like maybe do something like you use the ghost specifically as a plot device, and like you have the ghosts come in and it hits everybody. It hits everybody. You tell them it's like, okay, you age 40 years, you age 50 years, you get hit twice, you age 80 years, and at the end of the fight, they're like, oh, so I'm old now? It's like, no, you feel the same. It's like, what? You said I aged 80 years and I'm a human. Yeah, you look and feel the same, and like maybe work into it like they're immortal for some reason,
Yeah,
or you know what I mean?
yeah, that
That would
is
be that would definitely be a great introduction to like a whole huge plot line of
that's
what
a
the
hook.
fuck.
Yeah,
Mm. So nobody listen to this because I'm putting it into my next game, and if you're listening to this and you're playing,
right next to a bunch of Z Bradshaw style zombies.
oh man, I cannot wait to use those. I cannot wait. It's gonna be gross.
Oh man, I that those would be great to use in a campaign where you had like a necromancer as like the BBEG, and like those were the type of zombies that they were raising. Just man, because that would be a real problem. They literally treat like in like a lot of these modules. Like I'm running the Essentials Kit module right now. It's like the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, and then it leads into a couple other modules, and like they really do treat zombies like fodder. You know what I mean? They are like they're cannon fodder. Like there's a whole thing with a cult of the death god Miracle, and they're doing rituals and like raising zombies. They'll throw tons of zombies at the players and just be like, "Yeah, you're gonna completely demolish these guys, but here you go." Like it's literally just fodder. And if they were actually threatening, it'd be an entirely different deal.
Yes. And I think that, Z's take on the zombies are very threatening.
Extremely.
Definitely. I love the infection. I know we haven't experienced this, but
Yeah.
I love the infection aspect of them, and I love you make noise and you could draw more. Because,
Mhm.
that's the big thing about zombies. There's
Mhm.
more of them.
The
That's it.
horde. The
There
horde's
are
out there
more.
somewhere. If you
Yeah.
see this many, like they're out there.
There's more. And they're
Mhm.
making more as they
Mhm.
go. So we're getting kind of close to the end here. What
Yep.
what other plans do you like? What is something you want to do as either a player or DM in the future? Like something that's just kind of nagging at you that you want to do this very badly.
Let's see. I really want to play a 5e artificer or artificer or however you want to pronounce it, whatever your correct pronunciation is. Like I said, Nim was one of my favorite characters. He was a gnome artificer. He practically died, but a lot of the different magics he could do, I mean, they were just super cool. I had a lot of fun with it. So I'm as a player, but like the other thing is like as a DM, I very rarely get to play. So even though I really want to play that character, I can't even say that the next time I get to play in the game, I'm going to play that character. There are 10 characters that I really want to play. You know, as a DM, I got to say, a lot of the one shot. Oh man, hold on. There are a couple things I have to bring up now that you've brought it. As a DM, I've had a few ideas throughout my DM career that I've had, and I've been lucky enough to be able to try pretty much all of them. I got to run a one shot for you guys where you guys all had amnesia and you started with blank character sheets and you learned about your characters as you played.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun.
It was.
And then one year for my birthday, I couldn't even tell you what birthday it was. It was somewhere in my 20s. I had come up with an idea. I had 4 tables of D&D going all at the same time. 4 parties with 4 DMs, and I threw them all in the same dungeon. So I had 4 players at each table, 1 DM for each, and then I was what I called a judge. So like every time a a party would enter a new room in this giant dungeon, the DM would come to me, get the stats for that new room, and I would move a little figure keeping track of where all the parties are. And if the parties ever interacted, I would merge their tables and they would decide whether they were going to fight, whether they were going to cooperate, what they were going to do. Because the whole story of it was there was just this ancient wizard and he got fucking bored and assembled a bunch of champions and was like, go through my dungeon for my amusement. You have no choice. And that could not have went better than it went that night. I mean, like like the experiences that came out of that and the stories that came out of that and it were just all amazing. Everybody had a great time, and there are so many things that could have gone wrong, like with so many moving parts, and it just went oh so well. And like Tiffany even told me, she was like, "Don't forget about that story before you go record this podcast," and I almost didn't even get it on. So if you were a part of that, if you know exactly what I'm talking about and you were a part of that, and you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much. That was probably the best D&D experience I ever had, and I didn't even get to play or DM in it. Like I was just watching it the entire time because I had to be the judge or whatever, but just being able to orchestrate all that was wonderful. But that being said, because of all of that and because of having a lot of wonderful players and groups, as a DM, I've gotten to do pretty much everything I've ever wanted as a DM. And I think it's just because of how many games I've DM'd. I mean, like being the forever DM that I am, constantly trying to mix it up and do something different. I guess the only thing I really still want to do that I haven't done yet is I really want to run Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Like I've never done a heist game, and yeah, I think that's next on my list. Is I would like to run a heist game.
That would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. The little heist that I ran that one time.
Yeah.
I think the big thing that I want to do right now, I was inspired after watching The Green Knight, a movie that just came out. I want to get all the players set up, maybe make them like, level 10 or something, like actually make them like, they've been adventuring for a while. But then, for one reason or another, I haven't decided yet, but the players find out that they have 1 year left to live. It is unavoidable, and it's going to happen. I want to see how their characters would react,
Yeah.
how they live that last year of their life.
Yeah. I think that would be really cool. Actually, hear you talking about it actually reminds me of 2 other ideas I have had that I do want to do. I got this straight off of TikTok, not even gonna lie. Your players find out about a haunted house and get asked to investigate the haunted house. They go in, furniture's moving on its own, weird things are happening, and they expect ghosts, wraiths, whatever. And they find out that everything in the house is a mimic. And that's why it's all been moving on its own. And then eventually you find out the house itself is a mimic.
Oh,
I thought that would be really cool.
yeah.
And I also want to do like Suicide Squad.
Oh, a suicide. Oh.
But I kind of don't want to tell my players that we're doing a Suicide Squad. Like I just want to be like when they're writing their character backstory, one of the questions is why are you a prisoner of the king? And then like they have to answer that, and then like the start of the campaign is the king sends down his guard, brings a bunch of you out of the prison, has a mage cast a spell on you or something like that, where if you step out of line, like you die.
You know what it should be? Is you are a prisoner of the kingdom.
Yeah.
The king doesn't know who you are.
Yeah.
But you've done something.
Yeah.
The king doesn't know. However, there is an agent of the king.
Yeah.
Who has come up with this kind of like the Amanda Waller thing.
Yep.
You can even make it so that, they have such a complex spell put on them that if they even talk to the king, it's just unintelligible. Yep. Like, so they can't even go to the king and be like, hey, your agent is doing this.
Yep.
Oh.
And then I'm not going to tell them they're doing a Suicide Squad. Somebody's going to figure it out. You know what I mean? They're like, wait a minute, is this is this Suicide Squad? But yeah, there's gonna be like, you have to go do this thing or retrieve this item or yeah, and like we don't want to waste. Like, this is such a dangerous mission. We don't want to send our knights and our adventurers. We don't want to put them at risk. So we're sending you.
Then you could even find out like this agent actually has a whole prison of adventurers, and they're not even bad.
Yep.
They just have been capturing adventurers for years, and no one has found out.
Yep. So yeah, I definitely want to do a Suicide Squad,
and even put a geas on them so that they just can't speak about what's going on.
Yep.
So they find other adventurers, they can't warn them.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they would do these jobs that, like, it could have even started with, they had these jobs that needed done and they tried to hire adventurers, and the adventurers were like, no.
Yeah.
That is just too dangerous. And then finally they're like, okay, fine, you don't want to do it, we'll make you do it.
Yep.
So they just started imprisoning people on beefed up charges, and they're like, okay, well, you got to go do this now or you'll die.
Yep.
It's like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, we have something on you. And they always get low-level adventurers. So
yeah,
you could even make it that there are just no high-level adventurers. No adventurers have been able to get high enough level to, do what they need to do.
These things out here are too dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yep. You ready to wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've been talking long enough. We probably boring the shit out of everybody out there with us talking about it. I really hope that this inspires some people out there. Honestly, I hope that us talking about our characters, us talking about our experiences as DMs and as players, us talking about the good, us talking about the bad, I hope that this inspires you guys out there to really take note of how you're playing and how you're running, and maybe even gives you some ideas in the future of what to run, what to play. There's no one way to play or run anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, thinking outside the box is great. Sometimes thinking outside the box isn't so great. That box is there for a reason.
Yeah.
So if you get any ideas from this, let us know what you found valuable. Let us know what you used in your campaign. Ask us questions on, like, if you want to know about some other stuff that we may have done, ask us. I mean, we are more than happy to talk about it. But even more important, Guildmaster Rick and I both want to hear your stories. You tell us a story in the comments, whether this is in, one of our platforms of the audio podcast, or if you're seeing this on YouTube, tell us your story. Guess what? You're a guild member, as far as we're concerned. And we're the guild masters, and that's all that matters. So
email us, castersguild@gmail.com. Tell us about your character. You know what? I'm going to do something unprecedented here.
Uh-oh.
If you email me, castersguild@gmail.com, with subject line, tell me about your character, I will sit down with Guildmaster Baron. We will pick our favorite. Once we have our favorite, I will reach back out to you. And once we can exchange appropriate information, I will send you a bath bomb from geekyclean.com on my own dime. If
that's a hell of an offer.
You don't want to wait until you win, you can go to geekyclean.com/discount/guilddecree and get your own bath products at 10% off. But yeah, I would love to hear about your character so much that I'm willing to pay for it.
Absolutely. Well, we're to the point now that I think that we can start rewarding our guild members for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you tell us a story, you're already a guild member, but which we may end up handing out membership cards and stuff like that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a guild member, you'll get a membership card. But these bath bombs are great. You're going to get a great bath experience, and you're going to get a set of dice.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great, and hopefully inspire you to get more from geekyclean.com.
Yep. As of recording this, we are now on YouTube. It's been a long time coming, so check us out on YouTube. Description link in the description down below. If you like our podcast, but you'd rather hear us on YouTube, eventually every single one of them will make their way to YouTube. in video form. So check us out there. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, all that kind of stuff.
Don't rush us. We're doing what we can
Yeah.
when we can. We're not getting paid for this, so get off our backs. Spend more money at the bar, and maybe we can do this.
All right. Check us out on all the socials. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. See ya. Bye.
Bye.